we talked about James Comey, and I said, listen, James Comey wasn't posting the picture of that shell formation that said 8647, which obviously means kill Trump. We're not stupid. We're not kindergartners, and we're not liars. We all know exactly what that message means. And so does James Comey. He's just, as he ever was, a complete and utter liar. He claims he didn't know it was violent. He claims he just thought it was a political message, something he saw on the beach. Absolute BS. Absolute BS. And I said, listen, he wasn't posting that picture to specifically call for people to kill Trump. It might have that effect. I don't know. I hope not. I pray that doesn't happen. But that's not the intention. That wasn't James Comey's intention in posting that picture. His likely intention was to do a dry run. The same sort of dry run that school shooters or bombers sometimes do when they call a school and threaten a bomb threat, or call in a bomb threat, or call in a threat to shoot the school, and then they don't carry out that threat. They just sit back and they observe the response. What does the school administration do? What is the protocol for teachers? What is the protocol for parents? What is the protocol for law enforcement? And they get a picture of what response they will encounter when they actually carry out their threat, which they often then do. That's what James Comey was doing with Donald Trump. He was sending up a flare. He was saying, what are you actually going to do? Are you all bluff and bluster? Are you going to sit there and claim that you have a zero tolerance policy for political violence? But then what are you going to do? Send the Secret Service to my house? Ooh, la la, whoopity-doo. James Comey doesn't care about that. James Comey, like Jake Tapper, is on a book tour. James Comey's trying to sell books. And so, number one, this is just a slimy publicity stunt to bring attention to his new book. He is happy to foment political violence against the president of the United States in order to profit himself, in order to try to convince you to buy his book, in order to get people's eyeballs on his latest book, hoping that you will buy it. The shamelessness of James Comey rivals the shamelessness of Jake Tapper. He was sending up a test flare to see if President Trump will do anything. And I said yesterday on the show, and I stand by this, that he should be prosecuted for this. His excuse is so flimsy, so lame. James Comey articulated his defense yet again. We read his initial comment. He deleted the post after it had gained international attention. So pointless to delete it. And he posted, he's like, I had no idea it was violence. It would never have occurred to me that it was violence. And then he went on Stephen Colbert and blamed his wife. Take a listen to this.
Is this Instagram?
Instagram,
You
yeah.
grammed this. You were walking down the beach. What happened? You were walking down the beach, and you saw this on the beach?
Yeah, my wife and I, Patrice, were walking on the beach and saw those numbers in shells on the beach. And
You didn't do this. Somebody else did this.
Yeah, somebody else did it. We were on a walk preparing for this week,
Right.
the rollout of my book.
Yep.
She looked at it and said, why'd someone put their address in the sand?
All right.
And then we
8,000,
stood at it, trying to figure out what it was. And she'd long been a server in restaurants. And she said, you know what I think it is?
Yeah.
I think it's a reference to restaurants when you would 86 something in a restaurant.
Right,
And
it's
I
off
said,
the menu.
Yeah. I said, no, I remember when I was a kid, you'd say 86 to get out of a place. This place stinks, let's 86 it.
Right. I was a bartender. You would 86 a customer if they were getting drunk. Like, let's 86 them. Let's, like, give them a low-proof alcohol, something like that. Yeah.
And so I said, I think it's a clever political message. And she said, you should take a picture of it. I said, sure. And then she said, you should Instagram that. And boom.
What a loser blaming his wife, first of all. What kind of man does that? That's so weak and disgusting. He's such a liar, and he's such a confident liar. Because he knows he can tell a patently unbelievable story to someone like Stephen Colbert who won't press him on it at all. He knows he can use the mainstream media to tell this patently unbelievable story, and he'll just get away with it. The audacity of liars is sometimes astounding. And James Comey should not just be visited by the Secret Service. James Comey should be prosecuted for that. What is the motto of this show when it comes to justice? Perp walks and jumpsuits. Otherwise, these same people that abuse their power and use the federal government, weaponize the federal government to target us because of our political beliefs and our religious beliefs are going to do it again. And the next time they do it, we are not going to have the hope that President Trump is going to win the next election and come in and enact justice. This is our chance, our one chance to do that. If we miss this chance, it's over. But James Comey should also be prosecuted not just for a threat of violence against a sitting president, but for lying to Congress. Jeff Carlson and Hans Machny, who are outstanding reporters, remind us that James Comey, of course, a big player, to say the least, in the Russiagate scandal, that he's committed other crimes which he has not yet faced justice for. And so the question that I would challenge the United States Congress and the Department of Justice would be, what are you waiting for? This is what Jeff and Hans write. James Comey's back in the headlines again, this time not for leaking memos or lying under oath, but for something arguably even more unhinged. They detail the shell formation photo, the 8647. They say 86 has long been used as slang to rhyme with nix and stand for get rid of. The origin goes back to restaurant lingo, but over the years, it's taken on a far more menacing edge. As for 47, that's not hard to decode. It refers to the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump. Now, even if we leave aside how deeply weird this is coming from a former FBI director, it gets creepier still when you realize that May 15th, the day Comey posted this, just happened to be the 8,647th day since September 11th, 2001. You don't need to believe in numerology to understand what's being implied here. In total, the message was 8647 on 8647 days since 9/11. That's not a coincidence, they write. It's a threat wrapped in what Comey probably saw as plausible deniability. They then detail, after public backlash, Comey issued a statement. But they go, let's be honest, nothing will come of the seashell stunt, not legally. It's too ambiguous, and Comey knows it. He's a cunning man. He was counting on ambiguity. He baited the trap, got the attention he wanted, sold some books, and probably had the Secret Service visit already factored into his plan. And yes, he does have a new book out. This is all part of the same book Comey ran in 2017. Back then, they write, he orchestrated his own firing, which he immediately leveraged into becoming the anti-Trump resistance new martyr. Book deals, cable news hero status, and a special counsel probe that paralyzed the Trump presidency, all of it flowed from his move. But there's something more important going on here, Hans and Jeff write, something bigger than seashells and headlines. The real story, which the media refuses to touch, is that Comey should have been prosecuted long ago. Not for cryptic social media threats, but for knowingly participating in one of the most dangerous and dishonest political operations in modern American history, the Russiagate hoax. Comey opened an FBI investigation into the Trump campaign for collusion with Russia, even though he had been explicitly warned that the whole thing was a Clinton campaign smear. We know this because the CIA informed the Obama White House on July 28th, 2016, that Hillary Clinton had authorized a plan to link Trump to Russian intelligence in order to distract from her private email server scandal. The information was passed along by CIA Director John Brennan. There's even a memo. Hans and Jeff then continue. According to the declassified notes, Brennan briefed Obama and others in the White House about this plan. And Brennan also sent the same intelligence to James Comey. That much is on the record. There's even reason to believe Comey may have been present in the White House meeting. Someone with the initials JC was. And the full attendee list has never been officially disclosed. So let's be clear, they write, Comey knew the Trump-Russia narrative was manufactured. He knew the Steele dossier was fiction. He knew the Clinton campaign had planted the story, and still, he allowed the FBI to launch a full-scale investigation into soon-to-be President Trump based on lies. And when President Trump won the election, Comey doubled down. He didn't just go along with it. He drove the hoax. Hans and Jeff write, he signed the FISA warrants. He oversaw the witch hunt. He publicly feigned ignorance while privately advancing a false narrative. When Congress came calling, he lied again and again, which brings us to the point, they write. There's a crime that Comey can and should be charged with, one that's provable, one that falls well within the statute of limitations, and one that, unlike the seashells, he likely hasn't prepared a defense for. On September 30th, 2020, Hans and Jeff write, Comey testified before Congress and claimed to have no recollection of being briefed on the Clinton plan to smear Trump with Russia collusion. Specifically, when asked about the Clinton plan, Comey answered, quote, that doesn't ring any bells with me, end quote. When he was given a chance to change his answer, he insisted it did not ring a bell. That was a lie. And we can prove it since Brennan himself confirmed Comey was given a referral about the Clinton plan. Hans and Jeff write, Comey also denied knowing anything about Igor Danchenko, the so-called primary subsource for the Steele dossier. But Danchenko had already admitted to the FBI on January 24th, 2017, i.e., the very same day Comey sent 2 rogue agents to entrap General Michael Flynn, that the dossier was nothing more than gossip he shared with old drinking buddies. In other words, it was a hoax within a hoax. But instead of blowing the whistle, the FBI buried Danchenko's admission, paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars, and made him a confidential human source to shield him from scrutiny. Comey claims he knew nothing about any of that. That, too, was a lie. Another lie he told Congress was claiming he first learned about the Steele dossier in late September 2016, yet we know Steele himself handed the dossier over to the FBI on July 5th, 2016, and it quickly made its way to FBI leadership. Hans and Jeff say, unlike the Seashell Post, these are lies that can be prosecuted. The 5-year statute of limitations on Comey's September 30th, 2020 testimony has not yet expired. There is still time. The paper trail exists and is now accessible to Kash Patel, the new FBI director, and Dan Bongino, his deputy. Between them, they have the authority and the clearance to retrieve the records proving Comey was briefed about Clinton's hoax and the Steele dossier, that he knew about Danchenko, and that he repeatedly lied under oath when he claimed otherwise. Comey's defense, summed up as, I do not recall, is laughable on its face, but with the right paper trail, it becomes provably false. It's a test. James Comey is testing the Trump administration. And now it's up to the Trump administration. All the way at the very top, it's up to President Trump. It's up to Attorney General Pam Bondi. It's up to FBI Director Kash Patel and his Deputy Director Dan Bongino. Are you going to charge James Comey for the crimes he committed against the American people? Are you going to charge James Comey for lying to Congress about propagating what he knew was a false campaign smear funded by Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump? Are you going to prosecute James Comey for weaponizing the FBI against a man because he didn't like the man's politics? Because the clock is ticking. The statute of limitation runs out in just a couple months here. James Comey is this close to getting away with what he did. Unless you stop him. Raise your voices. Let Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi and President Trump know James Comey must be charged. We're not vindictive. We're not seeking revenge. We're not trying to stick it to him. We're not trying to target our political enemies. We demand justice because our system of self-governance requires it. Without justice, our civil society will cease to exist. And James Comey is thumbing his nose in the face of it as we speak.